Going live. All right. Now we got to get the Facebook groups in here. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday night. A wonderful April Friday night as we wait for a couple green check marks. Can't believe it's April already. Time has
It's
absolutely flown by.
crazy,
Can't believe
dude.
we're just,
Crazy.
3 weeks from the draft now?
I was gonna say
Anyways,
3 weeks gonna be Friday on the draft. Day 2.
welcome in everybody to another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers. I am your host, Erick Trickel, and joining me, as always anymore, with our pushed back show is the one and only Lance Sanderson. Lance, my man, how are you doing?
I'm just glad to be here today. Honestly, it's been a very long day personally for me. Lost a good friend of mine in a car accident earlier this morning. But you know what? That's what we do here on Dove Valley Deep Divers. We give you guys an escape from reality and a chance to get away, talk some football, talk the NFL draft. I'm excited to be here. I need this more than most people know today. So thanks for having me. It's always great to join you, buddy.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry about your loss and everything like that. Heart is with you. It's definitely tough, and there's definitely been times where I've had to go through doing a tough show
Yep. Oh yeah.
throughout the years. So it's one of those things, and it's nice to always be able to come in and do the show and take your mind off of it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I know that I can already see a couple comments in the chat. There are a couple people questioning the topic for tonight of safest top 100 prospects Broncos can target. We have Joey on Twitter coming in saying no such thing as a safe prospect, especially at the 20th pick. That is true. There is no such thing. Even with the first overall pick, there is no such thing as a safe pick. So when we talk about safest, this is, if you haven't noticed, this is the complete opposite of last week where we talked
Yes.
about the riskier prospects. Safest prospects means these guys may, they have a higher floor talent wise or ability wise. Doesn't necessarily mean they have a low ceiling. They have a higher floor. You have a good idea of what you're getting in at least one aspect, maybe two. These are guys that have clean medicals. I mean, maybe they did get hurt, but it's not something that has a lingering concern. They don't have the off-field stuff that's bringing concern. They don't have concerns about their football intelligence. They don't necessarily have concerns about the athleticism. They just don't have these added concerns that come with being an NFL prospect, which helps cover some of the more, inherent risk that you have.
And like the big thing, we talked about it last week with the riskiest players for the Broncos, whether it was injury concerns, there's some scheme limitations, stuff like that, off-field concerns. Like Erick said, the guys we're talking about here, what you're going to get out of a lot of these players. You know exactly what they're going to bring, not only on the field but off the field. They're high quality characters. They're quality scheme fits for what the Broncos do offensively and defensively. We got a handful of guys in each of the first 3 rounds we want to get into. It's going to be a really fun conversation, guys.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things. Is like they're just safest is a weird term to use. Safer might be the better way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Just they might be safer. We have Sentinel Supreme coming in on Twitch saying greetings, MHH team. Countdown to the draft begins. Hey man, I don't know about you. I've been counting down to the draft since last year's draft. And yeah, I mean it's one of my favorite times of the year. It comes second only to Christmas for me. But I absolutely love this time of year, being able to dig into these guys, learn about them, and all the work that I do. And not trying to toot my own horn here, but doing over 800 players, getting an idea on them, so that way I can bring you guys the best coverage that I possibly can, not just leading up to the draft, but when we get to the live draft shows, especially day 3, when we are getting guys from universities that aren't the biggest, that aren't well known, and we're getting prospects, and then being able to see if I can provide some kind of insight into it and give you guys some kind of insight, especially guys that the Broncos may end up drafting or not. Being able to provide for you guys commentary about who, are the safer picks, who are the riskier picks, who are the better fits, all things like that. But I'm absolutely super excited for it. We are just a few weeks away. Got a couple more guys here in the chat. We have Roy Osborne saying sorry for your loss, and Michael Ronquillo also saying sorry for your loss. Michael Ronquillo coming in saying good evening, Erick and Lance on Dove Valley Deep Divers. It's Robot of Doom. Good to see you back in here.
Hey,
Change the
what's
name.
up, man?
Glad you said something.
Yeah, I had no idea. It was like new guy on Twitch. That's awesome.
Yeah, and Keith Brugman, my safest pick, Erick and Lance. Love to see you, gentlemen. Good to see you, and Keith. Let's see here. There was a couple more. We have Chase Wallner coming in. Ernie Mays, hello, Erick and Lance. Go Broncos country only. Go Bo Nix 4-6. Missing the 6 there, Ernie. But I got you. I feel you. I know where you're going with that. Corey Johnson coming in saying, I want to draft 2 wide receivers, round 1 and round 2, and totally avoid the super expensive wide receiver market phase. Yeah, but if they hit, you're just going to have to pay them in a few years where receivers are getting top end receivers are getting almost 50 million on an average per year basis. You're going to end up having to pay them at some point. I do think the Broncos will draft a wide receiver. I'm not sure, maybe round 1, maybe round 2, but I think round 3 or later is more likely. Maybe they end up drafting 2. I mean, they did last year, and I don't think anybody was really expecting them to draft 2 last year. No. What do you think, Lance? Wide receiver round 1 and round 2, would you be for it? Or is that one of the things of like, maybe one or the other?
Well, I'm not going to be the helmet scout here because this is how it's going to come off as. But the last time that actually happened, a team went wide receiver in round 1 and round 2, ended up being Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. The Broncos did that not even that long ago. And how did that work out? Neither guy are even on the team anymore. And unfortunately for KJ Hamler, he had the devastating knee and hip injury. Jerry Jeudy just wasn't a fit personally for the Broncos and the direction that Sean Payton was wanting to take the team. So obviously he was traded last season to the Cleveland Browns. I'm not for that. I don't think that you need to double stack even in this heavily saturated wide receiver market in terms of money, but also this wide receiver class as a whole is not necessarily up to par of the last 3 or 4 years of wide receiver classes in the NFL draft. So to me, I think you should probably not saying to draft the best player available at a position of need, but kind of focus on your needs a little bit right now. And not that the Broncos have a whole lot of those needs, but taking 2 more wide receivers into a room you've already heavily invested in the last couple of years, including guys like so Cortland Sutton got a big deal. You've got Marvin Mims. You've got Troy Franklin. You've got Devon Bailey. Those guys are going to be the core of this team. While you can upgrade them, you don't need to do it in the first 2 rounds, especially in this year's class.
Yeah, and then we have David McCullough coming in with the $2 donation. Good evening, Broncos country, Eric and Lance. Good evening to you, Papa Bear. Hope you're doing well. It's good to see you in. We also have, let me scroll down here, David Kilgore coming in with the $9.99 donation. Thank you, David. We really appreciate that. Marquis Siegel from Kansas State would be an excellent choice for safety. I'm fine with it. I think that he is one of those guys that he could really, I don't think he'll get drafted. If he does, it's going to be late day 3. But I think he's one of those guys that when you get to training camp, keep an ear out for him, because I would not be surprised if he is making waves early, catches on, sticks with wherever he ends up as a special teams player, and potentially carves out not necessarily a starting role, but some kind of role with the defense going forward, and at least sticks around for a little while as a special teams player. He's definitely has the traits for that. And then just going through the chat real quick before we go through here, see if we got any more things. Peter Middleton saying, hi all from Singapore, 2 defensive tackles. Is that possible? Yes.
Yes, this is actually what I'm here for.
And it's, you throw defensive tackles around, and you got to make it clear that there are multiple different types of nose tackles. You have nose tackles, you have your 3 techniques, your B gap tackles kind of, and then you have your 3-4 defensive ends, which are tackles. That's the John Franklin Myers and Zach Allens of the world. Those B gap tackles, that's more of the Malcolm Roach, DJ Jones, and then going way back, Terrence Knighton, Vince Wilfork. Those are your nose tackle guys. So yeah, we could see 2 defensive tackles taken. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Denver Broncos looked at a 2 gapping nose tackle type. We're going to be talking about one here in just a little bit. They were looking for that last year, even after adding Malcolm Roach and having DJ Jones. They were looking for this big body 2 gapping nose tackle type. They just weren't able to get it. And then with the 3-4 ends, we've talked about it before. Nick and I have talked about it. We've tried to hammer it home a lot in the morning shows that we do. John Franklin Myers, free agent. Zach Allen, free agent. Matt Henningsen, free agent. Jordan Jackson, free agent. All their guys that play this 3-4 end spot are free agents, except for Aoma Uwazurike. 2 defensive tackles, entirely on the realm of possibility.
I want to add this just for some context here. Dustin Michael Hensley jumping in here on Facebook saying defensive tackle is what the Broncos need to look at. Defensive tackle is what the Broncos need. Look at what Philly did. And this is absolutely correct here. I mean, you're talking about going out and drafting Jordan Davis. You've got Jalen Carter. They went out and signed they had Moro Ajomo in the draft. They got Milton Williams in the draft. They added multiple different players like Hassan Reddick in free agency. They also had Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith. Like, they continuously build up that defensive line. They continuously build up the offensive line. That's where the game of football starts, guys. It's been something that you hear is one of these big tropes from scouting communities and team builders and stuff like that. The game of football starts at the center position, and it flows through the defensive line, and then it gets to your skill position players. The Broncos need to continue to build up this defensive line and continue to build that rotation, because the Super Bowl champions have been doing it for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, the adage is you win in the trenches. Mm-hmm. Look at the Super Bowl. Yep. Philadelphia Eagles, they won in the trenches on both sides. Their offensive line dominated, their defensive line dominated.
Yep.
And look what they did to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
We have Jonathan Fallett coming in. I hope I'm saying that name correctly. If I'm not, I really do apologize. I'm terrible with name pronunciation. He says, "So sorry for your loss, Lance. I can't buy you a beer in person, but here's a virtual one. Hope you guys have a nice weekend." Yes, definitely. And it's been a rough time for my buddy old pal here. And as I said, hearts with you. If I could buy a drink, an adult beverage, I definitely would.
Yeah.
But alas, we are just a little bit distance between us. But next time I see you, I'll definitely owe you one. And then it looks like that comment from Dustin was with some stars, so we appreciate that, Dustin. Unfortunately, we don't have anybody working the back ends. It's something that I've been trying to talk to Chad about, seeing if we can't get somebody to be our producer so they can let us know. I'm unable to have Facebook up while doing this, and it just messes with my computer a little bit too much. But definitely thank you guys. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Michael, for letting us know about that. Now, getting into this conversation, again, safest picks, we already covered it. There is no such thing as a safe pick, but there are some picks that are safer. They may typically they don't typically have those injury concerns. They don't have those character concerns on or off the field. They're relatively high floors. You know what you're going to get. What we did, or what I did, was I went through and I looked through 4 guys in the first round, 4 guys in the second, 4 guys in the third, for Lance and I to talk about and discuss as you see me move my camera with my heated blanket. Sorry about that. Messing that all up. And it's just a matter of these guys you're mitigating the risk a little bit, because at least you're most likely to get a quality player who, isn't going to cause trouble off the field, isn't going to cause trouble on the field, things like that. So Lance, I'm going to let you step over and take charge here where we want to go.
Well, first things first, I want to talk about versatility. And obviously, being position versatile is something that I value extremely as a draft analyst. The more you can do, the more hats you wear, the more valuable you are to me. I'm going to go to 2 specific players here in the first round that could potentially be there for the Broncos at number 20 overall. And they're positions that most Broncos fans haven't really talked about. More or less because of the secondary and the way that this Broncos defense played this last season. I want to talk about Malachi Starks and Jahdae Barron. Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia, Jahdae Barron, the cornerback / safety prospect out of the University of Texas. Now, these guys are highly rated prospects. Both I've seen drafted in the top 20, top 15 before. What makes Malachi Starks such a great fit for this defense, and what makes him so safe? And then go to Jahdae Barron after that.
Yeah, so what makes Malachi Starks, well, before I get into that, you mentioned, versatility. And the new thing with me is, do you mean versatile or do you mean positionless? And that is something that there's a couple guys this year that are kind of like that. Fortunately, Jahdae Barron, he's not one of them. He's one of the more versatile guys that we're going to be talking about among this list. And when you talk about versatility, it can often be like, oh, they can do both these things. But you get into that thing of, are they actually positionless? Because they can't really live at either of those.
Yeah.
Positionless football isn't a thing. Anyways, getting into these, Malachi Starks, his football IQ is off the charts. There's been nothing but praise for him there. I understand that he didn't test, as well athletically as a lot of people were thinking, but that's fine because he reads plays so quickly that he's just in the position to make plays. He can drop down in the nickel. He can play center field, though I don't think he could excel in it. He can definitely do it. And he can work he can work everything. He brings that versatility into the defense of being able to do multiple different roles within the defense. Still a safety, but can do multiple different roles. Just because he is a better caliber athlete than that you see it on tape than you did at the combine, and that football IQ. And then as for Jahdae Barron, this guy, he's being talked about being moved to safety. I think that he's just fine at corner, and you can play him on the boundary. I don't think he has to be a nickel corner. He can be, and I think he can be an outstanding nickel corner. But he can definitely live on the boundary. What makes him so safe of a prospect is that his technique is relatively clean. It's not the cleanest that it's ever been. He's not, one of the best technicians ever, but it's clean enough that you have a basic foundation. He's got that physicality in him. He's got that dog mentality in him. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to challenge every single play. I'm going to come up against the run. He just can bring so much to it. And what makes him safe is that you have this ability of, you can play him on boundary. If he struggles there, you can play him at nickel. If he struggles there, at the very least, you are getting a versatile defensive back, not a positionless defensive back, who can be a backup and cover 3 spots, 4 roles, better to say, inside of your secondary.
Well, and I think that's the big thing here. And we got a question from Peter Middleton, our buddy over in Cambodia, saying, would you draft a nickel so high, though? That's the thing. Like Eric said, he's not just a nickel defender. He can play on the outside. He can play on the inside. He can drop back and play some safety. He's a quality run defender as well, a high quality tackler. And this comes in again to the versatility aspect of these things. You already have Jaquan McMillan, who signed on an exclusive rights free agent tender, I believe, this season. If not, it's a restricted free agent tender going into 2026, if I'm looking at this correctly. So you've got a cheap option that's a high quality player in the nickel. You also have Riley Moss, who has position versatility. Pat Surtain can play in the slot if you need him to. You've got a multitude of different ways that you can inject these guys into your secondary and make it so incredibly difficult for offenses to try to even figure out a way to attack it. That's a big reason why. Now, I want to go to Malachi Starks.
Well, real quick.
Go ahead.
Since you brought up Jaquan McMillan, before getting into within that conversation, if you haven't done so, go back and watch the Broncos for Breakfast from Wednesday morning, where Nick and I had Cody Alexander of Match Quarters join us, and he talked about some concerns with Jaquan McMillan going forward because of what we see with corners and how volatile the position can be. Can Jaquan McMillan have another year like last year? We started to see him struggle late last year. Can he rebound from that? How much growth is there? And all these things for it. So you can definitely upgrade it. And then would you draft a nickel so high? With the way the NFL is going, I would 100% would consider it. And start thinking about it. Nickels are becoming extremely more valuable as teams are wanting to spread things out, especially as somebody who can defend the run like Jahdae Barron can.
Yes.
Because you don't want to be spread thin, so to speak, having that nickel corner in there and then having your opponents run down your throat. You want somebody who can be physical and demanding in the slot of some attention from blockers, and Jahdae Barron brings that. I don't think he's a nickel corner only. I think his versatility, ability to play on the boundary, those aspects are what makes him a first rounder. But a nickel out of the first round, especially later in the first round, I wouldn't bat my eyes, especially in the quality of the class this is this year.
Yeah, exactly. And we got a comment here I want to grab from Dustin. I want to get back to this conversation because I have a question specifically about Malachi Starks versus Jahdae Barron that I want to get to. But Dustin Michael Hensley jumping in with 500 stars over on Facebook as well, saying, I want us to get a defensive tackle at 20 and then trade back into round 1 and then take Omarion Hampton, the running back out of North Carolina. You have a guy here in this list that is a high quality player, talking about versatility, in Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out of Oregon. Is this a player that you believe not only to be a safe pick, but to be the correct pick in this decision based on what Dustin's bringing up for the situation?
Yeah, Derek Harmon he's a tough one. He's one that I almost consider not having on there because there is some risk to him when it comes to on the field. It's not a thing of like, oh, he's at risk of getting himself ejected from a game, but there are times he can lose a little bit of control and get hit with a flag. A personal foul specifically, which in the NFL, that can lead to, expulsion from the field. But he's a guy who can play 0 to 5 technique. He brings that versatility of being able to play multiple spots. He can 2-gap, 1-gap, gap and a half. He can play any of that. So that to me covers up for it a little bit. You do want to work on his body weight. He's a little flabby in the middle, if you catch my drift there. Not as toned. But this dude was one of the best pass rushers in college football last year. absolute monster, solid enough run defender. So as part of a rotation, even if he ends up being a third man of that rotation, which, hey, with a first round pick, that may not be the best use of it, but obviously you're hoping for more. But that as a fallback option, that, having that higher floor, that is what kept him on as being a safe pick for me.
Well, and to me, it goes back into the conversation that we've had multiple times here about the defensive line contracts going into the future. Obviously, Zach Allen, Jonathan Franklin Myers are both free agents after this season. And I know the Broncos are really wanting to get some of these guys back. Obviously, Zach Allen is the big one here. Jonathan Franklin Myers has been not necessarily vocal and outlandish on Twitter, but he has expressed
He's made it clear.
It's made it clear he wants a new deal. But if the Broncos don't want to extend Jonathan Franklin Myers, you take a guy like, who I think is a great fit as a 4-eye technique, a 3 technique interior defensive lineman, a guy that can play on the inside shoulder of a tackle like a Derek Harmon. This would be a prudent pick for the Broncos. They can get a guy that has that first step explosiveness, the pass rush upside. You can bring a guy in like Derek Harmon, be a safe option as a rotational player. And as he gets better built, more strong in his lower half specifically, better utilizes hand techniques even better, this could be a player that can take over for Jonathan Franklin Myers, not only in year 1, but also in year 2.
Yeah. And that's one of the things too, is that at the very least, this year you do want to upgrade over Jordan Jackson. This is another thing that we talked about with Cody Alexander on Wednesday morning, is you want to cut down on Zach Allen's usage a little bit to help protect him and hopefully help make him be more efficient of a defender. Great year last year, but the efficiency was a little different because he played, almost 2 games worth more of snaps than the next highest defensive lineman. So you want to cut back into that, and you want to do so by not having to force Jordan Jackson out there, who wasn't great. Yep. You want this rotation. And so, it not only does it give you that boost to your rotation this year, it's giving you that guy of, we now have options with what we want to do with the contracts of John Franklin Myers, Zach Allen, Matt Henningsen, Jordan Jackson, Malcolm Roach next year, because Derek Harmon also has the ability to work as that 0-3 2-eye technique as a pass rusher, which is what Malcolm Roach does, which brings more versatility to him. Now, before we go on, I know you have a couple things here. There's a couple comments. Jason Bonney says, Barron's length scares me on the outside. Jahdae Barron reminds me of Trent McDuffie, who also had sub 30-inch arms and has made quite a career working on the boundary. Yeah. And then Conga Hydra coming in saying, defensive tackle JJ Pegues could be the Broncos' new running back 1. He doubled up as defensive tackle and running back. I only grabbed this because this is one of my favorite facts about JJ Pegues. He has 8 catches in his career. 7 of them are from Bo Nix. He initially went to Auburn as a tight end. And then this last year, he had 21 rushing attempts as a Wildcat quarterback for the Auburn Tigers and had 7 touchdowns. And when he was introduced at the Ole Miss Pro Day, where Jamar Cain, the Broncos defensive line coach, was on hand for, Pegues was introduced as an offensive weapon, not a defensive lineman for the Pro Day.
Yep. It's a hilarious fit, and he's also a damn good player. I watched him a little bit, and at first I didn't at defensive tackle I didn't really like the lack of explosiveness, lack of length. Sometimes there's some issues that he has with some play strength, but the dude is constantly in the backfield all the time. He is constantly in the backfield, constantly making plays, and he's also a great see ball, chase ball tackler at this. I don't want to say second level, but when runners get away from his gap, he sheds really well, drags him down back from behind. He's a very good chase ball tackler, which I liked him a lot in that. Now I'm going to get back. Go ahead. You got one more?
Paul Cornegay coming in asking, what are your thoughts on Lan Larison with one of our 6th-round picks? Yeah, I'm for it. I like these smaller school running backs that just kind of explode onto the scene. Dylan Labe last year was one. Yep. The Northwestern kid who went to Indianapolis a couple years ago, he was one. Lan Larison is that guy for me this year. Really exploded onto the scene over the last last week or so. 6th-round pick, I'm all for it. Take that flyer. You're not going to find me shooting down a 6th-round pick very often, just because the hit rate is so low on them that if you can justify it, the reasoning behind it with athleticism, positional need, positional value, whatever the case, I'll be all for it. And then one more question here that I got, and it's an interesting one. John Houston coming in, draft James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee is who I'm assuming he means, and trade Nick Benito. I am one of the biggest skeptics about Nick Bonito on the Mile High Huddle staff. Great pass rusher, no argument there. Liability as a run defender, and that is something that I can't get over. That said, I still would not trade Nick Bonito and draft James Pierce. When you have people at Tennessee coming out and openly saying that everything was better when James Pierce wasn't around in terms of his attitude, his character, and just, I don't like using this word, but it was one of the words that was used in the quote. The vibes that he gives off and the vibes you get in the room when he walks in, just he sucks the mood out of it. He sucks energy out of his teammates. That is not a guy I would like on my team. I'm very curious to see where he goes up, because there are a lot of people saying that he may not end up a top 100 pick because of just how bad of a teammate he is.
I had not heard that. I mean, you see the ability. He's got first round talent for sure. He's an explosive pass rusher. He's a lot like Nick Bonito. He's an explosive pass rusher that's a liability against the run. And like they are almost exactly identical prospects in terms of their skill set. And I knew that he was for lack of a better term, butthead in the locker room, but I didn't realize it was that bad.
Yeah. Ben McGee had some comments about it. Daniel Jeremiah, he is one of them. Yep. And then I think at the Senior Bowl, might have been the Shrine Game. At one of them, they were talking to one of the coaches at Tennessee, and the coach had pulled no punches when talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know you'd mentioned that a handful of different times to everybody in the group chat, which what happens in the group chat doesn't necessarily stay in the group chat, but it stays in the group chat. But kind of like you don't like using the word vibes or swag. I don't like. I don't get it. This is the running joke here. Anyways, back to quickly at 20. We've got one more player. Do we want to talk about Emeka Egbuka really quick, or can I?
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, let's talk about Emeka Egbuka really fast, because we talked about it just a little bit ago, taking wide receiver round 1 and round 2. I'm not against taking a wide receiver in either one of those rounds. I'm not taking one in both of them. But if the Broncos were to target a wide receiver that brings a different skill set, is an elite route runner, very good with his hands, he's a damn good blocker, arguably the best blocking wide receiver in this class, especially out of the slot. Emeka Egbuka is the dude. What makes him so safe, dude?
I mean, reliability as a route runner, reliable hands, reliable blocking. He's reliable in everything. The bigger question is, he's got a high floor. The bigger question is how much of a ceiling he has. That's where there's a lot of debate about, and it comes in relation to his draft stock. He may not have the higher ceiling that you want to see with first round receivers. But hey, this is a weaker class where, teams typically have 20 to 25 first round picks. They're having less than 15. And so Egbuka some of these guys are going to get pushed up a little bit into the first round, and Egbuka's one of them. So when you get a guy who's just, quality at doing everything that is asked of him and does bring some versatility, he's most likely going to make a living out of the slot, but he can play some boundary depending on the passing concept. And he's, just came in. He did work from right away with them. He always was in someone else's shadow. They're at Ohio State with all the billion receivers they put into the NFL over the last few years. Egbuka was always behind them and still consistently making an impact. He keeps his nose to the ground, goes about business, loves the game of football, and he's just a quality receiver with the high floor. How much ceiling you have? Well, we're talking about safer picks. That higher floor makes you a safer pick.
So let's go back a couple of years ago, because you and I had this debate here on Dove Valley Deep Divers talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba. Same school, same, I'm not going to say the exact same type of player, but similar types of players. Slot merchants, good quality blockers, decent route runners, like these more reliable guys. How similar are Egbuka and Jackson Smith and Jigba, who Jackson Smith and Jigba has actually taken a step at the NFL level that I didn't necessarily think that he was going to take.
Yeah, so they've got quite a few differences for it. Jackson Smith and Njigba, JSN, don't want to get tongue-tied up over his name yet again. He has a little bit more athleticism. He has a little bit more, explosiveness to him in and out of breaks. He is a little bit more reliable at getting instant separation than Egbuka is. Egbuka, I think, is a little bit better of a route runner. The nuances are a little bit there. He sells fakes. He knows how to, drop his shoulder like he's going to be, cutting to his right, and he actually cuts to the left without losing balance, without losing momentum, without losing speed. He just may not be able to burst out of that break to get that instant snap and instant separation on a defensive back. But he's just going to outplay a lot of defensive backs. So that, to me, there's differences, but there is a lot of similarities there, and there's a lot of similarities in their value. Jackson Smith and Jigba was part of a little bit of quite a bit stronger class. Mm-hmm. And he was a guy that went a little bit earlier than I was thinking he would, and I was a big fan of his. So I, talking about Egbuka and, falling in the second round, again, this is a weaker class. I can see him pushed up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I had JSN and Egbuka rated similarly on my board. I think they're both right in the mid 30s in terms of my overall big board right now. I'd have to take a look at it. But yeah, like a lot of similarities. There are some differences. And like you said, the explosiveness out of his breaks is probably the biggest one. But Egbuka does bring that that reliability factor. I think he's the all-time leading receiver in Ohio State football history, if I remember correctly. Like, this dude is 100%. Exactly what you're getting out of this guy every day.
Now, we got some more comments here in the chat. We have Glenn Ashley saying, good evening, good afternoon, Lance and Eric. Happy weekend to you all and all of Broncos country. I absolutely love Egbuka at 20 or with the trade back. We need to draft tight end, wide receiver, running back that are multi-tooled. Egbuka has a chance to really break out the pro level. At 20, Egbuka is one of my favorites.
Yep, me too.
He is definitely one of my favorites there. Todd Ossendorf coming in. Egbuka would be okay, but I would rather get Golden or Tet. Tet or McMillan. There's some questions coming out of him because, being caught on camera, talking about how he doesn't watch film. Matthew Golden, though, on the other hand, he ran fast. You don't see that speed on tape.
No.
And then the bigger concern with him is that the data for him is really bad.
It is.
The statistical data that, teams use, people create to try to project success for it. He, in multiple of these categories, he is in a group of wide receivers that have gone on to do nothing in the NFL. His best games last year were games where Isaiah Bond barely played or didn't play in. His yards per game, which is below 65, it might be a little bit higher than that, is in a realm with only one receiver has gone on to even have somewhat of a successful NFL career. For me, I am not a fan of Golden. I think there's a lot of risk to him. I don't think he's a route runner. I don't think his hands aren't the best. All he has is, that 40 time at the combine, but you don't see it on tape.
Yep.
That to me brings a lot of risk with him because you just don't see it enough consistently on tape to rely on this one aspect to his game so consistently. And even if you could, can he be more than that one aspect of a player?
Yeah.
Tedor McMillan, I absolutely love him. I am not overly concerned about his I don't like to watch football, I don't like to watch tape comment. Wide receivers is probably one of the least important positions where it comes to watching tape. And you can turn on the tape and you can see his ability to still read defenses while he's playing, to find the soft spot in zone coverage. That's what matters. Now, linebackers, quarterback, safeties, if anybody at those positions says they don't watch tape or like to watch tape, I'll probably be all the way out on them. Those are important positions where football IQ matters. And then we have DW coming in with a $20 donation. Thank you, DW. Good to see you in. It's been a while since we've seen you on Friday night. Hope you are doing well. Says, I hope to get 2 running backs in this draft, something like Omarion and DJ Giddens. My preference is Caleb and Giddens. Caleb is an Arian Foster comp, in my opinion. Lance should be pounding his chest for that. The man can spread it out, run with vision, get skinny between the tackles, be Broncos for life. DW, we were talking about Caleb Johnson before this, and we're going to skip over into the second round, guys, and I'm going to take a little bit of the lead here because Caleb Johnson is one of those safe picks in the second round for us.
Yes.
And we were talking about this a little bit, the topic, before we went live. And what is it you said to me, Lance? Caleb Johnson reminds me with his running style a lot of Arian Foster. And I definitely agree.
Yeah, like this dude he's got great vision. He's got great balance through the hole. He has these long strides that are so smooth as a runner. His arms work. It's almost exactly identical when you watch this guy run. Arian Foster is such a great comparison. Now, Foster may be a better receiver than Caleb Johnson is out of the backfield, but it's not necessarily, I don't want to say like that is a fact. A big part of the reason why I say that is because you haven't really seen that with Caleb Johnson. I think he only has 24 total catches in his career at Iowa over the last 4 seasons. It's not a whole lot. So you didn't really get to see the opportunity of him being a receiver out of the backfield. When he did get those opportunities, especially when he got into space, the burst, vision, and explosiveness that he gets into can create explosive plays on a dynamic level. Caleb Johnson is one of my favorite fits for this Broncos team, especially with and Eric, you brought this up in behind the scenes, talking about his development as a runner behind the scheme. A lot of what Iowa used to do with Caleb Johnson as a backup running back was they ran him in outside zone. This last season as a full-time starter, they ran him a lot more on power and inside zone schemes, which is what Sean Payton likes to do in terms of his running scheme. Caleb Johnson showed the vision, the ability, the side-to-side athleticism, the agility, the burst, everything that you want to see, and he has the long speed. Caleb Johnson at 51 overall is one of my dream picks for this Broncos team, man. D-Dub, I love it, dude. It's such a great call out.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a good one. They run very similarly. The vision is very similar. There's a lot of similarities. I hate doing one-for-one comparisons because there's none that exist. But Caleb Johnson to Arian Foster is probably one of the closest one-for-one comparisons that we can find in a prospect that I've watched ever.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite comparison in this class.
It is so clean. He does have an issue of the receiving ability, but that just wasn't Iowa's game. Iowa doesn't know how to pass the ball, and Nick knows this, and I joke with Nick about it all the time. They never have a quarterback, so that kind of hurts the impact there. So when we get to the scouting combine, and obviously you take it with a grain of salt a little bit, but Caleb Johnson at the scouting combine, he came in and he showed really good routes. Mm-hmm. Granted, it's a little more limited route tree. It's the more stereotypical flats, slants, those types of routes that you get from running backs out of the backfield. Didn't get to see him try to run receiver routes, but you're not looking at him for that. And he looked really good with it.
His hands look good too. He caught the football really well at the combine.
And people are often underrating him because he played at Iowa, and Iowa was an outside zone scheme only. Well, Kirk Ferentz this last year took his hands off the offense, gave up a little bit, and they became more inside and mid zone, especially that mid zone stuff.
Yep.
And that Caleb Johnson excelled in it, and that playing mid zone, playing some inside zone, that is far easier to carry over and project into this gap scheme that Sean Payton runs. And it's not just the full gap scheme. It's predominantly gap, but Sean Payton, he has his outside zone, he has his mid zone, he has his inside zone. Every rushing offense has a combination of schemes. They just may have their living built in one of them. Yeah. As for the other running back, Giddens to me is a lesser version of Caleb Johnson. Again, lacking receiving ability. So for that second back, I would look for somebody with more receiving ability. I like DJ Giddens a lot. I just wouldn't pair him with Caleb Johnson. Give me Marcus Yarns out of Delaware. Give me LaQuint Allen out of Syracuse. Mm-hmm. Give me Woody Marks out of USC. Mm-hmm. One of those guys to bring that receiving ability. Brashard Smith, even if you want to live with the fumbles and hope that you can develop the fumbles there with how limited of a runner he's been. Maybe Jadon Blue again, if you want to live with the fumbles there. Historically bad fumble rate. Not something I can ever overlook. In today's game, but somebody who brings more oomph as a receiver. That's who I would look to pair with Caleb Johnson.
Well, and if you can actually figure out a way to get it done, and this is where Todd was asking if I was arguing not taking running back 1 and 2. You know what? To hell with it. Give me Travion Henderson and Caleb Johnson at 20 and 51. I'm happy for it because you have two different skill sets that bring and round out this room in an incredibly dynamic way.
And we have Dustin Michael coming in saying, wouldn't be opposed, I'm assuming, of drafting the kid from North Dakota State and making our offensive line better. Gray Zabel. He was one I wanted to put on the safe picks, but I kept him from it because you are fully projecting him to being a center. It's not something he got a little bit of experience doing it at the Senior Bowl and it went really well, but not enough experience there. It's more projection for it. I absolutely love the kid. I would be all for it. I'd be all for it with taking him, bringing him at center and putting Ben Powers into a reserve role and then moving on from Ben Powers after the season, which is doable and saving some money. I would not be opposed of Gray Zabel at 20 overall. I think that's where we would have to be. I don't think you'd be able to get him after a trade down. No. And at the rate things are going, he and Derek Harmon are two guys that, these are guys that we can get at 20. And now I'm not sure they'll be there at 20. There are 3 teams that have been linked a lot with both of them picking between, I think, 12 and 19, 18 in that range, where both of those guys can go. And we have DW coming in with another $20 donation. Thank you again, DW, saying agree. Plays faster than a 40 time. Caleb does not take hits either. Yeah. So with the guy his size, and there's a thing called speed score. It's kind of like relative athletics, athletic score. It takes their size, their weight, their measurements and stuff like that, and puts it against their 40 time, and it creates a score for it. Caleb Johnson, and the minimum you want here is typically about 100. Caleb Johnson was at like 120, which is part of some with other running backs of his weight. That is a pretty elite number to get. Caleb Johnson is definitely far faster than his 40 time. He definitely plays faster than it. And his 40 time with the size wasn't as bad as a lot of people made it out to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I want to grab this comment really fast because I think it was Dustin that came in with another group of stars. So we want to just say thank you for that. But then we got DW jumping in here again saying Lance, Travion, and Caleb would be unbelievable. Yeah, it's absolutely unbelievable. I don't think that that's actually a scenario that will happen because you don't take two running backs that high in the class. But you know what? That's a dynamic skill set that brings differing skill sets. Again, and round out the entire room. Travion Henderson as a receiver, I think, is underrated. And there's a lot of people saying he's overrated as a receiver. No, I think this kid can run routes. I think he's quality in pass protection. He's a run through your neck kind of a guy in pass protection. He's a 3-down player. Caleb Johnson can be a 3-down player. You don't force your hand. You don't show defenses what your intentions are. It'd be an amazing way to build out this running back room if you could get Travion and Caleb, for sure.
And DW, I gotta say, your profile picture makes me so jealous.
I know, right?
It is dark and gloomy, and we are currently waiting for a volcano to erupt up here. Man, that view though is absolutely gorgeous. DW, thank you again for joining us. And I think you're not wrong with pairing Caleb Johnson and Trey Henderson together. That would be basically taking one with the second and hoping you can get the other one with the third, which is possible. Trey Henderson, he has that foot injury, and there's been some comments that's been raised some medical red flags at the scouting combine. And speaking of running backs, we have Cody W with a $2 donation. Sorry, Cody, for getting to this so late. I meant to grab it earlier, and then I got sidetracked, so I apologize for that. He says, Scatabo, what are his negatives, and is he first round? No, I don't think he's a top 100 player. There's a lot of questions, about the long speed, how much is there, and it was funny. Matt Waldman released his offensive rookie scouting guide, basically. And in it, if you give me a second, I can actually pull it up because it is a really funny comment and it's very fitting. He says, talking about Cam Scatabo, blocking, don't even. Cam Scatabo is endangering himself when he blocks, and I wholeheartedly agree.
You want to see a guy duck his face into contact more often than Cam Scatabo? It's impossible.
He's risking a neck injury with it. He likes to duck that head in, lower his head, risking a neck injury, and that really is really concerning. And on top of that is you can see his lack of protective running style where he doesn't fully protect himself. What he takes unnecessary hits. Part of that is also an issue of not necessarily having the speed or burst to avoid tackles. And it's when you get to the NFL, that is something that you are adding a lot of risk to injury when you are unable to avoid unnecessary contact.
I think that there's a mentality thing with Cam Scatabo, and I like the player. I really do. I think he's versatile. I think he's a good receiver. I think he's a very tough runner. He's a damn good football player. If there's nothing more that you can say about Cam Scatabo, he's a good football player. But
he is going to be a great third running back in the system.
He's absolutely going to be a great, and everyone wants to compare him to Peyton Hillis, and that's not accurate. He's not nearly as big as Peyton Hillis was. Now, the running style, sure, that's fine. The lack of speed, athleticism, sure, that's fine too. But when you're 6'2", 217 as compared to Peyton Hillis at 6'2", 240, built like a fullback, there's a definite risk there with Cam Scatabo. I'm with you. I don't think he's a top 100 player. I don't think he's a top 125 player. He's a 5th round pick in my opinion.
I could definitely see that. Well, I think we can just at this point just go with the chat or quickly cover the remaining guys. So the other 2nd round players that I had, just real quick, I had Donovan Jackson, a guard out of Ohio State, who he is a guy that you plug and play from day one, and he's going to give you 10 years. Of course, barring unexpected injuries.
Well, Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You go. You go. You're leading this conversation now.
Another one is talking about that big two-gapping nose tackle earlier, Alfred Collins out of Texas. I'm glad I finally got Nick to come around with him at the 51st overall pick. He is the best run defender in this class, and I don't think it's overly close. So he is at the very least coming to the NFL. He is going to give you a high-quality run defender right away. Whether you can develop him as a pass rusher, you're not sure. But again, he has a high floor because of how high quality of a run defender he is. And the other one is Mason Taylor, which is a weird one. A 20-year-old tight end, that doesn't seem very safe. What makes him safe is that when I was writing up his scouting report, which is up on milehighhuddle.com, by the way, make sure you guys go check it out. A lot of the negatives were like, he does this all right. He can just use a little bit more growth in it. He can use a little bit more growth in this area. He is well-rounded. He does everything well. Everything could just get a little bit better. And on top of that, he is the son of Hall of Famer Jason Taylor, the nephew of Hall of Fame linebacker Zach Taylor. He knows what it's like to be part of an NFL team. He's undoubtedly been around it. He's undoubtedly heard about it at the NFL level with who his dad and his uncle are. And those bloodlines are something that NFL coaches are going to love because they know he knows it. They know that he is going to give it all. They know that he knows that what it takes to be a great NFL player and that he's going to give it his all every day in practice and every single game, every snap he gets. And all of that combined just makes him a safe player because he can carve out a role in an offense as a second or third tight end at the worst and see a career of 10, 15 years.
Yeah. So on Mason Taylor specifically, and I want to jump back to Alfred Collins here in just a second. I know we're getting a little bit herky-jerky, but I've got a couple of points that I want to get to. But first on Mason Taylor, the first thing you said, 20-year-old tight end, not necessarily a great thing. I think it's the best thing that ever happened with Mason Taylor. And the reason why goes into your second point. He could use a lot of growth in a lot of different areas, but he's got a great baseline of experience in doing all kinds of things. Route running, great at blocking. He can play inline. You can flex him out in the slot. Play him out wide if you want to. He's got great hands. There's a great foundation to build with, but you also have the youth in the most difficult position to translate to the NFL outside of quarterback. He's 20 years old. And you have the upside of a player that has Hall of Fame bloodlines. Like this kid can be a tremendous player because it takes 2 to 3 to 4 years for a tight end to really reach their maximum potential. Outside of guys like TJ Hawkinson, Rob Gronkowski immediately had that huge impact. George Kittle came in with a baseline very similarly to Mason Taylor, by the way, with a baseline that you could absolutely work with in like 5 different foundational forms of being a tight end. Mason Taylor has all of that right now. He's only 20 years old. Get him to 26 and see what he can be. He might be the best tight end in the NFL based on the traits that he has, based on the tools that he has, based on the bloodlines and his youth. 6 years for him to grow and learn at the NFL level, the dude can be incredibly spectacular. I love the fact that he's only 20 years old playing tight end with the baseline of, man, give me that all day. 51 overall, absolutely. Let me pound the table for that pick right now. Now, I want to tie this conversation, go back. I know I said it was going to get herky-jerky, but we had a conversation about wide receiver round 1 and 2, running back round 1 and 2. There was another question. How about defensive tackle round 1 and round 2? We talked about Derek Harmon being a safe player. You talked about Alfred Collins being a safe player. What do you think about pairing those guys back to back if you really think that you can get a dynamic running back in the 3rd round or even on day 3, given the depth of this class and the tight end class overall? 2 defensive tackles, that's a huge pick there.
And with the thing with if you were to pair Derek Harmon and Alfred Collins, hypothetically speaking, I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, you have your DJ Jones, who's a quality 3 technique, 2 technique run defender. You have Malcolm Roach as your inside pass rusher, and then you have Alfred Collins, who is that short yardage situation, space eater, 2 gapping guy, and who can bring that. Then you had Derek Harmon, who's your 3rd defensive lineman, your 3-4 defensive end, able to rotate in with John Franklin Myers and Zach Allen. And then you also have, again, you have Malcolm Roach. So you can get a little bit more creative with his front, move some guys around, create different matches, help, maybe we can see DJ Jones a little bit more as a pass rusher. He's had shown potential there his first year. Last 2 years, it's kind of dropped off a little bit. So yeah, it would be a great pairing and it would help set your lineup for the next 2-3 years with it. provided you extend Zach Allen and extend John Franklin Myers, with getting a high quality rotation on your defensive line. Again, doubt it happens. I would be willing to bet, say 100%. It's not going to happen. They're not going to take 2 defensive linemen with it. If they did, they'd take a true defensive tackle, and then they might take a edge defensive tackle. A guy like Landon Jackson, I saw somebody mention him earlier, who can, be a rush linebacker, but in certain sub packages, he can rush down and be a 4-eye technique. Somebody like that, a Savion Jones, a Shamar Stewart in the first round. He's another example of that. A Michael Williams in the first round. He's another example of that. Of those body types, those defensive players there. Glenn Ashley coming in saying, I don't like or want Fannin. Fannin announced today that he was going to Denver for a visit, by the way. I have an article up about that.
Right, I didn't see that.
That you guys can check out as well. He announced it on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams. And it was kind of funny because she offered him some advice. Do you care to guess what that advice was?
Try to be a joker. This is get into Sean Payton's good ear and not his bad one. I missed the whole thing.
Do you remember the story about one of the things that impressed Sean Payton the most with Bo Nix last year?
Oh, the football stuff that he had in his bag, everything that he had.
The football stuff that he had in his backpack, everything was there. So Kay Adams tells him, and she says, Sean Payton's told me this story over and over again. It's one of his favorite stories last year. Make sure your football bag has nothing but football stuff in it.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's get to the third round, guys. We've got a handful of players we want to get to. Again, this running back class has been absolutely one of the most fun running back classes I've got the opportunity to scout, especially in the top 100. There's probably 10 or 12 guys that can go into top 20, 125, top 150. Another guy that I really like coming out of the University of Miami, Damian Martinez. This dude is physical. He brings everything. Erick, why is he such a great fit, not only for the Broncos, and what makes him so safe as a player?
Yeah, so when we get to the third round, safe becomes a little bit used more loosely because there's more concerns with these guys. So, I'm looking at how reliable can they be in a certain role. And Peter, I keep seeing you asking, I keep seeing a couple people asking about talking about centers. If we have time, we will definitely touch on centers. In fact, there's a player here coming up that we can end up talking about centers.
Yeah.
But Damian Martinez, he is one of those guys that he's going to get you 4 yards every single time he touches the ball, basically. I don't want to say 100% guaranteed, but it's 95% guaranteed. 4 yards every single time. I have him as a third rounder, but there's a lot of talk coming out of some, I can't remember who it was. Might have been one of the ESPN guys. One of them brought out and came out and started saying that if the Dallas Cowboys miss out on Genty or Hampton in the first round, then look for them to try and acquire Damian Martinez sometime in the second, either with their own second round pick or trading back up into the second round to get him. So that is one thing I'm keeping out for because he is so reliable. Reliable blocker, reliable enough receiver, reliable runner, reliable hands, not a fumbler. Ball security is great. So he's just reliable. He's a guy like kind of talking about Cam Scott about how he's going to be a great third back. Damian Martinez at the very least is going to be a great number 2. He's going to be that I don't want to say great. He's going to be a good, secondary power back to someone more explosive. He's going to be a good Mark Ingram type back.
I think that Damian Martinez is an upgrade over what the Broncos had last season in Audric Estime. Quite honestly, you're talking good vision, lateral agility off the charts, very good power runner. He can catch the ball pretty well if you keep him on his frame. Like when he has to extend his arms out and go and catch the football outside of his framework, there's some issues there. But he's not a terrible receiver by any stretch of the imagination. And you want to talk about a brick wall in pass protection. Damian Martinez is insane in pass protection. There's some issues with lateral quickness, the guys that move around him a little bit. But when he gets a body on a body, it's stonewall protection as a pass protector. So I really like Damian Martinez. Let's go to interior offensive lineman here, specifically Jonas Savainia, as I believe how you say his name. I cannot ever get his name correctly. Anyways, he's a left tackle from Arizona, but there are a lot of people that say that his best fit is going to be at guard. And I actually agree with that. I think that he's got the power profile to play there. I think he's got some mobility issues that concern me out at tackle. Erick, you and I talked about him at the Senior Bowl and some issues that I had with him in pass protection there. What makes him so safe for the Broncos here?
You remember Mike Upati?
Yes, I do. Yep, absolutely.
He's Mike Upati.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. Yep.
Like Mike Upati had issues in pass protection that, they were able to overcome a little bit based on guys around him in the quarterback play. You can do the same thing with him, but he is a phone booth mauler in the running game. He's got a little bit of movement skills, a little bit more movement skills than he had with Mike Upati to get outside. But, that's not something you want him to excel. So if you're drafting for a gap scheme, inside zone scheme, he's a guy that you can come in and he's going to very likely be a day one starter who can be a quality starter for the next 10 years. And when I say quality, it means that he's a guy that if you get a chance to upgrade, you take it, but you don't actively look for that chance to upgrade.
Yeah.
Kind of like that Ben Powers. Like,
yeah,
he's quality enough. He's decent enough. He has his issues. Yeah. But he does a lot of things, well enough. Denver can upgrade him. They 100% should. And Savanea, he can be like that. And one reason why you could look at Savanea over Powers, contracts. Talking about moving on from Ben Powers, you can do that. Luke Wattenberg is a upcoming free agent, and I'm going to carry this over to the other offensive lineman we have on here, Tate Ratledge out of Georgia. He is a guy who, injury adds a little bit extra risk there, but everything's been all clean there from the combine. There hasn't been any red flags as far as I've been told with that. But he is smart. He's a guy who's if he doesn't work as a football player, which it fully should, he can end up being a high quality coach. I think he has guard potential. I think he can make a fine living working in Sean Payton's system as a center to give you a guy to upgrade over Luke Wattenberg and be a long-term starter over Luke Wattenberg and Alex Forsyth and Nick Gargilo, because you have 1 year left of Luke Wattenberg, 2 years left of Alex Forsyth, and 3 years of Nick Gargilo. So basically, unless they extend one of those guys, you're going to be having a revolving door at center over the next 3 years, unless you can find that long-term guy. Tate Ratledge could be that guy. Savanea, not so much. I don't think Ben Powers can move inside to center either. So that's kind of limits your options there. If Tate Ratledge doesn't work out at center, if he's not showing that he's picking up things quickly enough or has some issues, well, then you have the fallback option of he can be a guard. He can be one of those guys that you can sit there and look at replacing Ben Powers with after the season and move on from. I saw somebody mention a January 6th cut for Ben Powers. It's doable this year. I just wouldn't do it this year. I would just wait and do a normal cut next year when you have a guy getting the season underway, seeing this guy develop, and then go and move on from him.
I think with both of these players, Savanea and Tate Ratledge, it comes back to something that I talked about earlier going into first-round players, versatility. Jonah Savanea is a quality tackle prospect. I think his best fit is at guard. But you have Quinn Bailey coming off of a major ankle reconstructive surgery, and you need a swing guard, swing tackle kind of a player. Jonah Savanea can be that. You have issues at center with Luke Wattenberg, Alex Forsyth, Nick Gargiulo. You have those issues. Tate Ratledge can not only be a future starter for you at guard, he can also start for you at center. And the issues that Tate Ratledge have in run blocking specifically, because he's not necessarily have the greatest grip strength to hold on to players and drive them. In a duo scheme, in an inside zone scheme where you get double teams and allow a guy to actually latch on, that mitigates a lot of the risk factors that you have with a Tate Ratledge in outside zone schemes. Erick, you and I were talking about this earlier. You get him in outside zone, you get him moving laterally, he has a hard time landing on targets because he doesn't have his head on a swivel. When he does actually have the opportunity to latch on and start to drive somebody, he can sink his hips. He has a ton of power in his lower half. And when he does drive somebody, they typically end up on their back. He's a really fun player to watch. You have center guard versatility with Tate Ratledge. You have guard tackle versatility with Jonah Savanea. That makes for safe prospects in general. To me, I think either one is a great fit for the Broncos. In the third round, I'm absolutely behind it.
Yeah. And other center options. Jared Wilson, I've seen a couple comments about him. Jared Wilson, zone-only guy. Doesn't have the power to hold up, doesn't have the core strength. I know Nick is a big fan of Marcus Bow out of Purdue. He's a guy that I don't think he has the core power to hold up as a center in the system. You might be able to mitigate the issues there a little bit. Kind of Lloyd Cushenberry him, I think would be the best way to put it. Mitigate those issues, but you're not hiding it. Similar thing as they did with Luke Wattenberg and Alex Forsyth last year. You can mitigate those issues with help from Ben Powers and Quinn Miners, but you're not going to eliminate them. Jake Majors, another one. Does he have the power for it? I'm trying to think of some other guys here off the top of my head for it. One guy that I wouldn't mind taking a look at whatsoever is Marcus Ware out of Montana State. He just might need a year of development before he's ready to take over as a starter. Torricelli Simpkins the third out of South Carolina. He is all power, but he is not moving whatsoever. He's not going to generate. He can generate some decent push, but he's not a guy who's going to drive a defender down the way. He's going to hold himself on. One of my favorite guys that I like is actually a guard that's going to have to move inside out of Oregon State, in Joshua Gray. I absolutely love his tape. Core strength, no problems there. Athleticism's good enough mover, head on a swivel. I question if he has the football IQ at the level of Tate Ratledge, which is why he sits behind Tate Ratledge for me. But outside of that, Joshua Gray, I think, brings very similar of a player that you can get out of Tate Ratledge.
Man, I wish we could do this for another hour. Like we're at our time limit here. We're gonna have to wrap this up here, unfortunately.
A couple more things before
we got a couple more things. I want to grab this from Cody W. Just popped on my super chat side of things. Aronde Gadsden Jr. in the 3rd round. Eric, what do you think of that?
6th round.
I'm actually with you there. I don't think that there's not enough versatility with what he brings. He's a great receiver, but he's not necessarily a great overall tight end. Expand on that though.
He is not a blocker whatsoever. Whatsoever. Even in the slot, his blocking is vomit inducing. Really struggled at the Shrine Week. Didn't really struggle at the Shrine Week. Hands were lackluster, routes were lackluster at the Shrine Bowl. Like, doesn't erase tape, but that is your chance to go out there and stand up and stand out against a slightly better competition. And he struggled to do that. In the strong tight end class, I think part of what's also pushing him down too is we're seeing other tight ends step up. Thomas Fedone, the second out of Nebraska, he's really stepped up. Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame, Jackson Hawes, Gavin Bartholomew, Terrence Ferguson. These are all guys that have been rising up a little bit. Joshua Simon, Maliki Motaveo, he's kind of there in that 5th, 6th round. He hasn't really risen, but he's, kind of in that same mold. Or not same mold of a player. The issue with Monteveo is he looks like a blocker. Nick Boyle. Do you remember Nick Boyle?
Yeah. Yep.
Looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. That's Maliki Monteveo.
Yep.
Especially as a blocker. He is more receiver, even though he's like 270 pounds, 260 pounds.
He's huge.
He doesn't bring it as a blocker, and I don't see the fire in him as a blocker. And that's the other thing is if you read up my scouting reports, a lot of times I talk about is that you can see it. They may not be the best as a blocker, but if you can see it, you're more likely to teach it and improve upon it. Aronde Gadsden, he doesn't show that fire or desire as a blocker. But that is going to wrap it up for us today. Couple just quick comments here. We have Glenn Ashley coming in. The depth of analysis on this edition of Dev Valley Deep Divers has been absolutely elite. Great show, brothers. Great questions. Broncos country. Yes, thank you guys. And this is an excellent point that I would like to make. Our conversation is that it's a conversation, and we love it when you guys in the chat are involved with us, asking questions, bringing comments, and all that. And we appreciate you guys so much for being involved and doing that and allowing us to get, even though we end up having to shortcome our topic a little bit, and not being able to go fully in depth in these guys, we can still manage, and we can get in more depth on guys outside of who we have on our topic because of the questions you guys ask. So we thank you guys so much for that. Peter Milton saying hence why I'm here with Lance and Eric. We appreciate that. Again, Glenn Ashley, risk mitigation is important and flexibility as well as power. Risk mitigation is mitigation is a double-edged sword, because if you mitigate the risk too much, you might lose that boom. Eagles, bringing them up. Jordan Davis, massive risk. Jalen Carter, massive risk. Quinyon Mitchell, massive risk.
Massive risk.
All of them boomed for them. But then you take massive risks like Trey Lance, which quarterback, different position. I'm trying to think of a defensive lineman off the top of my head.
Robert Kimdichie.
Robert and Kimdichie. I am really apologizing. I'm struggling with names really bad tonight, and I don't know why. It might be the fact that I've been up for like almost 20 hours. That might be why. But he's one.
How about
Who
Jadeveon
was it?
Clowney? There was a ton of risk with Jadeveon
Jadeveon
Clowney.
Clowney. So you kind of get it's a kind of a double-edged sword. You don't want to mitigate it too much, but it's calculated risks. Talk about it with quarterbacks with their throws. Calculated risks when it comes to risking a turnover for a big play. Calculated risk for that. We have Michael Bronquilla saying, great show tonight. Eric and Lance on the Dev Valley Divers. Go Bo Broncos. We appreciate that. We appreciate all of you guys who came in and super chat and starred. DW coming in with 3 donations of $20. Thank you so much, man. We appreciate you. Again, I am still so jealous of your profile picture. I saw you say what it was.
Kauai. He's in Hawaii.
Yeah, Kauai. I want to go there so bad. I want to take my wife there. I want to take my daughter there, and I want to take my mother. My mother, it's always been a dream of my mother's to go see Pearl Harbor. And so I want to go and take her to do that for all that she's done with me or done for me. Cody W coming in, we appreciate that. Jonathan, David, McGilrath, Papa Bear, and Kilgore all coming in. We appreciate you guys so much, and that doesn't even include everybody who came in on the super chat on Facebook, and Dylan, in Michael, and then anybody else that we may have missed. We appreciate you all so much. Quick matter of business before I get into the final rundown of it. I will be on the show tomorrow night as well with Dylan. Ron White's going to be out, so you'll see me tomorrow. Then you'll see me on Monday morning and Wednesday morning and next Friday. It's a busy time of year for me. But no, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to sitting down and talking with Dylan about it. It's been a while since Dylan and I have done a show together. Looking forward to that. With him producing the morning shows now, we get to talk a little bit briefly behind the scenes before we go live as we wait for Nick to end with Scott on the Falcon stuff. But it's gonna be fun to talk about it more depth tomorrow about it. So make sure you guys come in with your questions and stuff, hot, heavy, and ready for that. But we're gonna have to get out of here. There are a few things before we get out of here that you guys can always do. First off, go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and leave a 5-star review for a chance to win some gear, not swag. I refuse to say swag every single month. And while you're at it, you can go to mhhmerch.com to get your merch on or gear on, not swag. Again, I hate that word. You guys can go there. You guys can get some awesome hats like this. You guys get shirts. I'm not wearing my shirt today. I'm actually wearing an anime shirt. All my Dev Valley Divers shirts are faded and can't be seen and all dirty anyways. But they also have posters, mugs, and all that you guys can go check out there. But with things the way they are, understand if you can't. So we appreciate you guys. So if you are unable to do that, either through support us financially, either through buying gear or super chats or stars, the one thing you can do is wrong ticker, subscribe, like, and share. It only takes a matter of seconds. It's something very easy to do. It just takes a couple clicks of your button, and as well as word of mouth. I cannot tell you how much word of mouth helps us out. And then subscribing and liking, it helps us fight the algorithm on YouTube, on Twitch, on Facebook, on all this stuff that is always giving us issues. Ding algorithm. It's always giving us issues. You can go to facebook.com and follow facebook.com/MileHuddlePod, facebook.com/MileHuddle to get access to all of our written content, as well as going to Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at MileHuddle, and at MHHPod, and at DVDD_pod for all the content there. I have been absolutely blasting out written content over the past few months. I am sitting at like 120 total articles since the start of February. So make sure you guys go and check those out, especially now. Scouting reports are starting to come out. Omarion Hampton, he's up. Trey Henderson, Dylan Sampson, a lot of running backs, some tight ends. But as always, guys, again, we appreciate y'all so much. We love you guys, and thank you for tuning in every single Friday night and every single morning with Nick. Nick always closes out the show, and I never get a chance to say anything. So we appreciate you guys so much. And Lance, before we get out of here, any final words?
I just want to say thank you all for joining us tonight on a difficult night. It was thank you all for the support. Thank everybody for showing us support, for me support specifically, but for us support. It means a lot, to be able to be here and have a good, fun, enlightening football conversation and just do what we do best, man. Cover your guys' Denver Broncos, cover the NFL draft, and we couldn't do it without you guys. So with that, you guys stay safe and take care. Have a great rest of your weekend, and as always, go Broncos.
Yeah. Thank you guys again. Greg Smith saying, Eric, be safe up there. Buddy who played quarterback with me in high school lives up here. Yeah, we've done all we can. We have masks so we don't breathe in any volcanic ash and everything like that. We've got stuff to cover our windows. Just got to wait for the thing to blow. Not the first volcano eruption that I've lived through, though. It'll be the third one, because the Mount Spur last erupted the year I was born, and then we had Mount Redoubt, who literally right across the water from me, erupted when I was graduating high school. Erick and Lance, Broncos country with the NFL draft knowledge. Thank you. We appreciate that. Says, thank you for listening to our questions, Lance and Erick. No problem.
No problem.
And then,
we love it.
Thinking of you, Lance. Of course, heart goes with you with
guys.
your loss of your friend and everything like that. As well.
One last thing. You've been through earthquakes and not hurricanes, but gigantic blizzards and volcanoes and stuff like that. Please pray that the volcano that lives underneath me doesn't blow up, because that might be the end of the world. By the way, I live in Wyoming, guys. Yellowstone is a big volcano. We don't want.
We don't talk about that one. But I always joke, I would rather deal with earthquakes. I would rather deal with blizzards. I would rather deal with volcanoes than I would hurricanes or tornadoes. Tornadoes scared the living crap out of me.
I love tornadoes. They're fun to watch, man.
They scared the living crap out of me. Watching Twister when I was like 3 years old traumatized me forever. Anyways, guys, thank you all for joining us again. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, don't drink and drive. And as I steal it from Nick, make sure you choose kindness and compassion. I will see you tomorrow, and we both will see you next week. Have a good night, have a good weekend, and go Broncos.